And we are back to the Man Camp Podcast, episode 9. We're trying to make it to 100, man. So, so we're just happy to have everybody here, man. That these guys that decided to come out tonight, man, and help me with this podcast. I'm your host, Chris Cook. My co-host Deshaun couldn't make it tonight, so rocking by myself tonight. So, but I have three amazing guests on here, and we're just gonna talk, and we're gonna have a good conversation, about some things, and I feel like it's gonna help young men out, and that's all we're trying to do. First off, we always like start out always like start out every episode with the mental health check. So I'm just gonna go around and ask guys, how your mental health is, man, 1 through 10. So I'm gonna start with the youngest the youngest in charge, young Delonte. See how you doing? How's your mental health this week, man?
Oh, that's my guy.
Mental health is pretty good, man. I try to honestly separate every day as far as good and bad. You let too many days pile up, end up too much going on. So I'm pretty good, just separating everything one day at a time, really, even though that sounds real cliche.
Okay, 1 through 10, man. How is it?
Probably, I say like a 7.8.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Because as Black men, we don't ask each other how we don't have that conversation enough, man. Talking about mental health and how we doing, man. Because I mean, those conversations are very important. Just to have those conversations is a big thing, man. I mean, because if you don't have a person that you can speak to on a regular basis, that has your back, and y'all have deep conversations about stuff, it's not gonna happen, man. It's not gonna happen. So, Ramone, how's your mental health doing, man? How's your mental health doing?
You know what, man? I'm doing pretty darn well. That hasn't always been the case in recent years. You and I talk quite a bit, but I'd say scale from 1 to 10, I'm like an 8.5, 9, something like that, man. I'm doing well.
It's great, man. It's great. Nate, finally, how's your mental health doing, man?
At the moment, bro, honestly, I'm doing really good. So I'd say I'm about 7.5, 8 at the moment. The last couple of weeks, I've been experiencing a lot of highs and lows. And this previous week, had a bit of a rough time. My son was in hospital for 10 days, and I was worried about him, but he's home now and he's doing better. So yeah, I feel real good.
Sounds great, bro. Sounds great, man. So I guess I get to introducing everybody. So our topic for tonight, man, is going to be what advice do you give your younger self on women? We haven't had a topic about women, and how young men should deal with women on the Man Camp podcast yet. But I felt like it was important for us to dive into this this topic, man. So I kind of went with three different perspectives a lot of ways. Delonte, he's 26 years old. He's the youngest in charge. He's definitely been a inspiration for me. Keeping me up, in my life, and making sure that that I stay on my purpose. Because I was his football coach. I coached quarterbacks at Oak Park High School. I've been coaching high school football for the last 10 years. And he was one of my first quarterbacks I coached, and ever since then we've been tight. So he's been a definite light in my life, man. And he's also a freelance photographer. He took the pictures for the Man Lessons book.com website, man, where he made me look good. So I definitely appreciate Delonte, man, for being on tonight, man. So
I appreciate you too, man.
I really do hope you can learn something from these brothers, and you can teach us something as well, man.
Absolutely. I may need your services for photography, like within the next 2 weeks. Absolutely.
Let me know for sure.
See, making connections right there, man. Connections.
Yeah. Well,
gotta,
Delonte pretty much family at this point, man.
gotta coordinate.
Man.
Gotta coordinate. You know what I'm saying? Gotta coordinate. Yeah, these other two brothers, man, are very accomplished, man. Nathan Sam, man, is a great artist, man, and he's an author as well. He wrote a book called Truth Be Told.
Truth Be Told, the book. Truth Be Told, the book of brutal honesty for Black women.
There you go. I'm sorry. I apologize. I apologize about that.
I can't wait to hear what this brother got to say.
It's on,
Yeah, I didn't know that was the full title. I can't wait to hear that too.
Exactly.
Yeah. Absolutely.
He was Kevin Samuels before Kevin Samuels,
Right. I'm here for it.
And he's a great artist, man. And you can find him on Instagram under his name, iambabyboyjody. And he's a great artist, man, and he has a lot to say, man. And we're looking forward to what you got to say tonight, man.
Appreciate you having me. Looking forward to it.
And last but not least,
you ain't gotta read the bio, man.
Last but not least,
I'm in the middle of personal branding.
Okay. To say that that he's my brother is an understatement. To say that he is a friend, a confidant is very. It wouldn't even be any words to be able to tell it. And I just appreciate him being able to be on tonight. So Ramone Reese. I really do want to read his bio, but it's a lot that he gave me,
Right.
So Ramone Reese, he's definitely a friend and a confidant, and I definitely do value his opinion, so that's why he's on. So this is my distinguished guest for tonight, and I appreciate you guys coming in. So let's hop into the topic, man. So what advice would you give your younger self about women? Delonte, you want to start off?
All right. So for me, I kind of broke it down into sections because I wrote a couple notes, but I kind of wrote it down into sections as far as like different aspects of like when you dating, engagement, marriage, like when you're trying to court a woman. And then like when y'all just friends. So it's like, for me, I feel like I just started at like when you trying to get to know a woman, pretty much. The advice I would give my younger self or / my son is pretty much be a friend before you actually get with that woman. Like there's so many aspects to a person that I feel like you want to know what you get into before you actually get into it. And don't start young, because people gonna grow and change like at all times of life. So like some people get married and then people change and it's like, oh man, like you really changed. Like what do I do now? Like, so it's like you really want to get to know somebody before y'all are, you know what I'm saying, before y'all get to that very last step, which is marriage. So I would say like if y'all just like getting to know women and getting to start dating, pretty much be friends and get to know that person in all aspects of life as much as you can. Like get to know her, some of the people that she associate with and hang around, and just because like that's her in that moment, that don't mean that's gonna be her forever. So, but I would just say
basically what you're describing is running her facts, her car facts. Figuring out who you're dealing with, who you're really dealing with in a lot of ways, because I mean, people representatives are what you meet when you first meet someone. And honestly, it's kind of tough to really get to know somebody, on that level. So
that's why I would say be friends, so you can find out as much information. She gonna feel comfortable at different times. And don't get friend zoned, of course. But get to know her in all aspects of life as much as you can, because when she feel like she can trust you as a friend, she gonna give up more information than anything else.
There you go. Because actually, Nate, you got a son too, am I correct?
Yeah,
You
I
know.
actually got 3 sons.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So what advice have you given them over the years, man?
Well, I basically I got 2 23-year-olds and an 11-year-old. So the information that I give them, of course, are different because they're going to interpret information different. So with my oldest ones, I wanted them to understand that, especially when they started dating age, that to remember that women are human. They're not that different than men. They simply have the ability to pretend like they're different and it be believable, right? That being said, there's 2 aspects of them. There's the real them, and then there's the version of them that society tells them that they have to be in order to be considered a good woman and get the good man. So to pay attention and get not get not get conditioned into the mind frame that they're different, that they're that much different, that there's the psychology that they have is that much different than yours, because it isn't. And that's something that I've learned over the years. And with my youngest one, I tried to make him early in life remember to focus on the things that make him happy, and always make himself a priority, because I think a lot of young men, particularly myself, raised by a single mother, I was conditioned to believe that my self-worth was based on my ability to be something for women. So I think a lot of single Black mothers do that to their son unintentionally or subconsciously, because they're looking for a type of comfort, right? So subconsciously they instill that into their sons, which makes women who are putting on the facade in order to pretend that they're the good woman, it kind of makes them sitting ducks for them. So just always to remember to put himself first as an individual, because, and that doesn't mean that you don't take care of your family and all of that, but you put yourself first as an individual, because as the foundation, if you're not okay, then you can't sustain anything. And that's something that something that I missed telling the oldest two, because I didn't know that. So now it's like a process of like trying to get them to see things a little bit different, or just expand their mind. But the youngest one, he gets it early because he's already noticed some differences in, like, even the way things are handled at school between the boys and the girls. But I can expand on that later. I don't want to take up too much time.
Yeah, that's deep. That's deep, man. Ramone, do you have any thoughts? I mean, you have a nephew, Jalen. So
absolutely.
So what's
absolutely. So I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, I'm just saying, like, what advice do you give Jalen?
Okay, so let me. I guess I do have a slightly different perspective. So I'll just slide back a moment. We have some creatives here, and I would like to be an author one day. So I definitely have to give shout out to Chris, and I'm really looking forward to read Nathan's book. So just a little bit about me. I'm from Detroit, originally West Side, Cass Tech. I was raised by a single mother, and my father was murdered, wrapped in a piece of carpet, thrown in an alley when I was 12. And they weren't together, so I didn't really grow up with many male role models other than my uncle Eugene. I have one uncle, or one maternal uncle, and then Chris's father, Uncle Robert, who was pretty much everyone's dad. So the middle child of 4, for me, I was kind of invisible in a way growing up, because I was pretty much a nerd, a loser dude, right? Not that I'm too much different now, but I did manage to go to the University of Michigan for undergrad, and I'm now a attorney and entrepreneur and real estate investor. And so, I mean, and I'm also married to an absolutely wonderful woman that I truthfully do not deserve. And I mean, I was extremely careful with women growing up. I mean, especially coming up in the hood, it's way too many traps, right? That can trip you up and set you back. And so I think that my younger self, I mean, there was no margin for error. You know what I mean? Like there was no one pump too many or any of that kind of stuff, man. And I mean seriously, when you're younger, you take risks that you would not take once you gain a bit more wisdom. And I think that to some extent, being focused on getting out and avoiding any type of potential pitfall. I mean, don't get me wrong. There was a certain period of time where my life was extremely boring, you know, and Chris and I've had a lot of conversations and I've done corrections on different ends of the spectrum. But I would say that, I mean, you really have to know yourself and know what your goals are. And then ask yourself, what is it that you are doing, or what are you doing in a real brass tacks way? What is it that you want to do, and how does that either help or hurt your goal? If it's hurting your goal, or if it's not beneficial to your goal, then that's something that can go to the wayside. So I feel like Kevin Samuels calls it de-discipline. I feel like, I mean, there's just too many situations that your emotions and your heart can get you caught up in, especially for the people who are coming from disadvantaged. Well, you don't even have to be from a disadvantaged background. I have friends that come from privileged backgrounds and they deal with a lot of the same things. So one thing that I've been learning and kind of correcting a lot of the, let's say, narrative that came from growing up in the environment that I did, where my mom was a single parent. And it's not that she bashed men. You know, my mom, she recently got married a couple of weeks ago. And, you know, you have to set your boundaries and you need to know yourself and be confident in that. That doesn't mean that you can't be corrected or anything. But at the end of the day, you're the person that's going to be responsible for absolutely every decision that you make, right, wrong, or indifferent. And I think owning that, whether it's women or anything else, but especially with women, because, you know, we often go with our hearts or our small head or what we think society, what we think we should be to a woman or in society, like Nathan was saying. And those things, they don't really pass the reality test, you know. And if you don't have other real men to talk to, you know, you will chase your tail forever. And I did. The good thing is that I was able to, you know, get away from diseases and babies, you know. So I lived to tell the tale, but I would not recommend some of that behavior to anyone else.
Hey, that's deep. That's deep, man.
Yeah, like that. Real talk.
Real talk, man. I mean, you know, and honestly, I mean, I feel like, you know, the margin for error is so small when you come from the hood, man. I mean, it's so small, and and you have just absolutely no. I mean, look, if we just talk about society, period, you know, you can't slip up. You can't, you know, like you can't, you know, there's no boys will be boys for Black men. There's no, you know, there's no mulligan for us, you know, a lot of ways. You know, there's an opportunity for you to be positive or negative, and it's absolutely there's absolutely no, you know, margin for error in a lot of ways, you know.
Well, you know, I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, go ahead.
Oh, just to expand on that, because this is something that I've actually been putting a lot of thought and personal growth, which is, you know, had you asked me what my mental health check was, you know, let's say last year this time, it would have been a -20, you know. And I've been going through a personal growth phase myself that actually it's the very, very interesting thing is I spent a lot of time, like I said, trying to dodge those pitfalls. So I thought that I had to make a certain amount of money, go to a certain school, have a certain career, have a certain job. I can't dress like this, can't walk like this, can't talk like this, can't eat like that, you know. And so I said, my personal motto used to be leave no doubt. So, you know, if I'm going to go to the store, right, and you're going to go buy a loaf of bread and you think it's $2, I'm not going with $2. I'm going with $5 if I can. You know, if I'm scrounging up change and I think it's $2, I'm going to at least get $2.50, $2.75. And so I think that what a lot of people do, we don't really take agency and take like actual accountability and responsibility for the things that we can control in our lives. And, you know, when it comes to women, it's like, okay, so You pull up over this girl's house, and you know, it's some dudes outside. All right, you're gonna not be a punk. Well, I mean, what does that get you? You know what I mean? You pull up in somebody else's neighborhood, you know, and of course, maybe you hollering at the baddest girl in the neighborhood. That's a problem. It's like, it's not, yes, the margin for error is definitely smaller, because there's, first of all, most people are looking at you like some sort of threat. And I had to stop myself. I look at other black men that way. And, you know, the funny thing is, I started thinking I had some margin for error once I got a couple dollars and an education. And I got pulled over and went to jail. I've never been to jail in my life. You know what I mean? And that changed my perspective, with the cop just messing with me. You know what I mean? And so women often will get you into all kinds of situations. And it's not like a woman hating thing. It's a taking responsibility for yourself, because you are the only one who is going to have to face whatever these consequences are. You mess around and pop off, and let's say you're not even the father. You still on Maury. You know, that's not a good look. You know what I mean? It's just you. Yeah, I really think that we're not really telling our young people the real deal. Like, I mean, okay, fine. If everything is out to get you, nobody really likes black men unless you are a basketball player, athlete, or Barack Obama. You know what I mean? Or a Mandingo. Okay, well, let's just skip that, and let's say what is it that you're going to do then in that situation? And it's really just as simple as that, you know. And people need to be more conscious about their decisions. And I don't think that we think enough, and that we encourage thinking. Everybody's about action, especially with this, you know, instant gratification. We have more access to more information about just about anything that you could ever want to know. And all we're doing is looking at cat videos and twerk videos.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely.
You know what I do with my son? Speaking to that, and I know we're talking about women, but you're absolutely right as far as we have all this access to information, and people don't even think to look stuff up. Every time my son asks me a question, I tell him to look it up, because I want him to first attempt to find out the information first before he asks, because I could be wrong. You know what I'm saying? I tell them, you know, even if I tell you something, even I can be wrong, and I'm your father. So with that being said, if somebody gives you information, accept the information, because they could be right, but always look it up and check, because they could be wrong, even me, right? And so I try to develop that habit, and you can find out how to do anything. He taught himself how to draw and do a whole bunch of other things, just looking it up and watching videos, tutorials, and things like that. So, yeah.
So can I interject with a question? Let me ask you guys this. You know, I'm pretty outspoken. Hopefully I don't live to regret this in my middle of personal branding. But, you know, if young men are watching this, we sound like a whole bunch of people scared to fucking talk the real shit. Let's talk about these hoes. So what type of women? I mean, like, let's just keep it real. What type of women would you tell young men to avoid? No, matter of fact, I feel like we know who to generally avoid. It's okay. Maybe I'm saying this. There, at least in my life, I feel like the kind of woman who would be, let's not say ideal, but who's definitely a marriage type woman. We knew who they were in first grade. I feel like I've always known who those women are. And I don't know if I can necessarily identify the type of qualities that they had. Maybe one of you all can help me articulate that a little bit better. And it's not that other people are, you know, better or worse than others, because I mean, hell, I'm not that great of a mechanic. You know what I mean? If you call me to fix your car, that's not really what I'm going to be good for. You know, you call me about some business or real estate, well, that's different. And I feel like there's a pressure to accept, I won't say BS, but, you know, let's even talk about the Kevin Samuels thing. So this woman has, you know, X amount of children. Maybe she takes care of them. Maybe she doesn't. You know, maybe that's the type of girl you avoid. But I feel like you knew who she was going to be in second, third, fourth, fifth grade. And dudes look at the body, or maybe the girl had a crush on you. She came after you. Maybe you was down bad and you needed to flip some tax money. I don't know, but you know, do you guys have any type of, you know, have you put that into some sort of category or thought process, especially you, Nathan, with the book? I'm really interested in what you have to say.
Okay, well, yeah, I do. However, it's changed over the years, and there's an explanation for that. Once again, I was raised by a single mother, and growing up, my example, well, she was very like a very aggressive mother, right? She had the angry black woman type persona. You know what I'm saying? Like she used to talk to her boyfriends crazy, all that kind of stuff like that, right? So when I started dating, not only did she talk to her boyfriends like that, she talked to me like that too. So when I started dating, I was looking for the opposite of that energy. So I used to identify a good wife with the woman that was more soft-spoken and more reserved and not so loud and more meek and soft in nature, that type of thing or whatever, right? However, I did not know that it was possible for women to pretend to be like that. I didn't know about passive aggressive, right? So a good wife at the time was a woman that cooked, that cleaned, that was soft spoken, that was that type of thing. But now I think that a good woman is a woman who is focused on self-improvement, and not necessarily self-improvement as far as like education, right?
It's about
what I mean, yeah, about her as an individual, because like education and things like that have an end date. Is she conscious about her body? Is she conscious about information? Not necessarily education, but does she read? Is she always trying to expand her mind? Is she ambitious? Is she driven? Is she focused on goals? Right? Because my thing is, if she can't help me elevate, if I can't have a conversation with her, she can't make me think deeper, then what's going to happen is I'm going to have to talk to other people other than my wife in order to expand my mind. Right? If she can't trust me to lead, if she doesn't understand the information that I understand, like she needs to be able, I need to be able to have a dialogue with her about whatever we're trying to achieve, and she understand the conversation. That way her opinion and her insight can count. Like you can't give insight to something that you don't understand. So now I would look at a wife as someone who can, this sounds cliche, but walk along with me as opposed to walking behind me, because I was raised to be a provider and a protector. I was raised to believe that it was my job to do everything, but I was never taught to look for someone who can help me do anything, because my mother probably didn't think of it that way, and a lot of women don't. They don't think about them having to help the man accomplish something. It's the man helping them to accomplish whatever vision they see for themselves. Well, a man can't lead you to a direction that's not his. That makes you the leader. So with that being said, yeah, just a woman that understands my vision, has the similar interests, and has the self-discipline with herself, because if she has self-discipline with herself, then she can have self-discipline when it comes to other things, especially.
You know, that's actually a big thing that you said, and I was listening to it, and I said, you know what, I'll go ahead and be 100% transparent. You know, Chris knows my mom. She's a wonderful woman, but I mean, man, she was fierce, you know, with dudes growing up. You know what I mean? Now, none of our parents were, you know, in our lives for, you know, the majority of our upbringing, you know. So I think in that situation, you know, whether she had a boyfriend here or there, I think that her kind of putting her kids first before any of these other people, especially, you know, I knew then, and definitely hindsight being 2020, it's not like any of these guys were, you know, going to be in a Tyler Perry movie or something like that coming to save the day. But, you know, I think that many of us grew up in single parent homes, often in, you know, impoverished backgrounds. I don't know what the statistics are, and I'm actually curious to read some of the longitudinal studies for the women that we see now, right? Like when I was growing up, it was okay. Basically broke ass ghetto bird bitch, gets pregnant, has a kid by some random ass dude. She gets on welfare, whatever. Maybe she ends up being a CNA, getting her shit together. Now she want to dance around the club thinking she's the shit, right? And so that was the chick that had the kid. Maybe she actually did become something. Maybe she strips on basement floors on the weekends, right? And she only had custody. I mean, like, I'm trying to keep it real. So for me, growing up, I didn't necessarily see those people per se, but I literally thought that men were the problem. Like, that men were the problem. That women were perfect, men were the problem, because it was not just my mother who was a single mother. All of her friends were single mothers, and there was only one man that was around all the time, other than my uncle, was Sterling, you know. And one thing that I have come to realize is that, I mean, not that that's what a man is, because I don't think that there's any one version, but I think I'm learning what it is to be a man in interacting with my current wife and my mother, you know. And like, so I set out at a young age. Like I said, I was a super nerdy, Chris knows, super nerdy, you know, scared of my own shadow type of dude. And I said, you know what? I'm a kid, right? So I can kind of decide who I want to be. So I set out, I'm reading all of these books. I'm getting Cosmo, Men's Health. I'm reading, you know, all of the 20 things that women hate about men, or blah, blah, blah. So I kind of started molding myself to be like this super perfect guy. I was a sucker. I was a sucker. I was a sucker. And I'm so glad that in 8th grade, this girl, you know, I always was working, hustling, selling candy, something. You know, I had to do something. And I had a crush on this little girl. I had a Nike ring. She wore my ring, never came back. Wore my beeper, never came back. She used to come say she hungry. I walk up to KFC because I'm trying to touch her booty and shit. And one day, her sister came over and she said, Ramone, is you a sucker? And it was kind of just when I started catching on, like, damn, this chick is really trying to do me. You know, I'm writing love letters, leaving. Now, maybe today that would probably be like stalkerish or something. I'm writing love letters, teddy bears, running up the Rite Aid, all this stuff. And it's like, it took me that situation, but not until maybe, I wouldn't even say high school, somewhere around damn near a senior year, when I really started to realize, like, damn, there is a such thing as women who ain't shit. And everything in between, you know. And I mean, of course, you know, completely ain't shit women, right? Like, you know, it's some completely ain't shit dudes. But I started having to really kind of look and analyze, like, man, hold on, man. Tyler Perry and Wait and Exhale, this ain't what I'm seeing. You know, I'm actually seeing a lot of women who are looking to take advantage of men, or if they're not looking to take advantage, which is often the main thing, in one situation, one scenario, one way or another, it is like Nathan was saying. I don't necessarily believe that a man has to lead just because you have a penis. I don't think that entitles you to anything other than standing up when you pee if you want. But like, it seems that women these days, I don't know how this narrative or whatever has gotten, Black men especially, we're like, I just call it second-class citizens. You're not considered. You are optional. And so I think that affects how we go about dealing with people. So, you know, Kevin Samuels is a popular dude out here. But I mean, one thing I can say, even though I do think he has some feminine ways, which a lot of us that were raised in single-parent homes tend to have, it's like some people try to overcorrect. But I'm not used to male authority. You know, it's a way that a man does things that is different than the way that a woman does things, or maybe masculine energy versus feminine energy, even when I'm trying to be compromising. And I think that that's one of those things that you ain't got to be a sucker, or you ain't got to be no over macho dude. That's not masculine either, you know. And I think that that's just one of those things that me and Chris talk about it all the time. It's complete bullshit, the narrative out here on men and versus women. And women talk the loudest, and most men don't want to deal with all the backlash and the peanut gallery. So we don't say anything. But that's not really helping any of the young men, any of the men who are going through things, who are trying to deal with things. Hell, even the friend of the court system is fucked. You know what I mean? Random chick has your baby. which I totally get. I mean, hell, it's in her stomach. So, hey, this current system is, you better watch where you put it. But so if she doesn't want to have it, she doesn't have to have it. If you want to have it, she doesn't. You still are not having it. If she wants to have it and you don't want it, not only is she having it, there's nothing you can do about it. Legal. And then you're going to be probably put on child support, which is going to end up impacting your finances, your job situation, maybe your freedom. And meanwhile, she's all in your face talking about you don't have nothing, when really many of them would not have anywhere to live, anything to eat, if it weren't for the fact that the baby came out of your vagina and you're the sole person who can make that decision. Now, I think that given the situation, men have to do what they have to do because reality is reality. And sitting back talking about what woulda, coulda, shoulda does not change your situation. And it's not a woman hating thing. It's just, yo, this is the real deal, man. And that it deserves some level of analysis, especially because it's based on an outdated notion where you went from your father's house to your husband's house. Women were not allowed to work and own property and things like that. So yeah, duh, you can't just divorce somebody or knock somebody up and then, skip off into the forest. That makes sense. But today I feel like there's a mindset change that's needed. And since you can't change anyone else's mind, like Nathan was saying about the women, I think people really, really, really need to sit down and spend time with themselves and really looking at things instead of talking about what's always happening to you. Shit happens to everybody. But the thing that you can control is what you do. And I feel like we don't have enough of these conversations. Like, I mean, hell, I don't give a shit if somebody comes and says, "Oh, Ramone might be a woman hater." Well, don't fucking buy a house from me. I don't give a shit. But I don't hate women. I love women. I just like it's some bullshit out here and nobody's saying anything about it. And I'm fucking super lucky that I never got caught in some bullshit because they tried it all the time.
Yeah,
all the time.
Absolutely.
I mean, most
Absolutely.
definitely. I mean, we all run into it. The whole. If you're educated and you're smart, you dress nice. You're not a quote unquote thug.
Nigga, you gay.
Yeah, or you run into what Nate said. You run into the representatives. You run into the chick faking like she's a good woman or she's that and other, and you should choose her and all that stuff. But the one thing that I talked about in my book was that was about, like, I think you talked about it, Ramone. You talked about understanding your choices. And one thing I talk about is blame, is being lame about your own errors. Like you can't be like blaming other people for your decisions is the quickest way for you to lose in a lot of ways. So if we're talking about women, a lot of guys like to blame women about they like to blame women about having kids and all stuff, and it'd be like, bro, like, but you chose to lay with this woman. You chose to go without a condom, and when Delon said, what was always my thing to you, but I always told you, I said, rock your rubs. And y'all always look at me like, what is you talking about, coach? What are you talking about?
I never know.
Rock your rubs, bro. Rock your rubs. Like, rock them. Because honestly, I felt like trying to tell a young man it's about 16 to 18 years old to not have sex is crazy. It's like,
that's impossible.
It's possible, but at the same time, it's unrealistic. It's unrealistic. It's you're better off telling a young man to rock his rubs and be protected, and or at least understand that you have some choice in the situation. I mean, and I mean, with the advent of so many things now of birth control, there should be no unplanned situations that are happening, but they have to happen.
It's interesting that you said
unplanned by who and how long in advance? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
I was gonna add on to what you said, Chris, because I'm not sure if you fellas are familiar, but just recently in Texas, they changed the abortion laws.
Oh yeah.
So now you can only, well, you technically you can have an abortion, but they've given the citizens the legal right to sue any abortion clinic or institution that conducts one. So they basically made it illegal to do it because they'll get sued out of business.
And you only have 6 weeks to do it. You don't have 6 weeks to do it.
Right. But what I find interesting is what you said as far as like there being so many birth control options, right? So there's an actual chapter in my book where I speak about this. But it'll be interesting to see what happens in Texas and the other states that follow, because there's currently 17 proven safe methods of birth control available to women. And men have vasectomy, condom, and abstinence, right? So what I find interesting is the fight to protect the right to abortion, because then the same rule would apply. With all of these other versions of proven birth control available, why would abortion be necessary? So going back to telling my son something about women, abortion is kind of like the ability to not take accountability for children that you want and you don't want to have. So if that option were removed, then I think we would have less unplanned pregnancies, because the women would then be forced to pay more attention. They don't have to be as careful as men because they have the abortion option, right? What do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, my bad. Go ahead, Chris.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say one super interesting thing, which is super related to your point, Nathan. I absolutely believe that the number of unplanned pregnancies would decrease, but I also think that the structure of child support and applying for benefits and public aid or whatnot would decrease it, but probably not as much as we think. You know what I mean? Right. Because at the end of the day, it's an option, right? So one thing that I think is interesting, I was listening to Kevin Samuels, and I don't like to just take what people say. I went and I looked at some of the reports that he was citing. Have you seen I think it was 2019 or 20, the CDC released a men's fertility report. And when you look at the men's fertility report, I mean, it's something that I feel like I always kind of intuitively known. I call them pussy getting ass niggas, right? It's some dudes, it's like a small percent of the dudes get all the women and they, get all the, sex or whatever. And then the majority of men are kind of just, at home or trying to figure out they're weird or whatnot, or I wouldn't even say weird. I would just say that there is
unattractive.
They're not as, they don't stand out and attract as many women as some other guys, right? And it's kind of and it's absolutely something that you can learn.
I'm not sure it's an attractive thing. I'm not sure it's an attractive thing.
I think you're explaining like 90-10 rule. Like 90% of women are
let me
actually
give you the numbers. So the numbers is roughly, when you do all the math, Black men are absolutely exponentially more likely to father multiple children by multiple different women. However, when you break down the population, it's roughly 25%. It's like 25%. I mean, and you can look at it yourself. And so to me, I mean, I look at it like this. And this is the interesting thing that I think is for a lot of men to make different decisions. The truth of the matter is, if roughly 80% of African-American children are born to single parent homes, and I'm not necessarily knocking a single parent. I grew up in a single parent home. That's not something that I would like to or would have wanted to have for, my offspring, which I don't have yet. But, if you just look at the statistics, it's clear as flat out that, everything is, all the bad things that can happen to you in life are exponentially more likely. And that's just that. As much as people don't want to admit it, that is what it is. Us sitting here today are anomalies. We know way more people that aren't sitting here. And that just is what it is. And it's like, so like Nathan was saying, you have all of this, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be rights and things like that. All I'm saying is the male perspective is not considered and is given short thrift. And so given that that's the reality, I mean, it is what it is. But even with that, if 25% of the men are the ones doing all of this, and I forget what the numbers like, 50 some odd percent of African American men do not have children and they are unmarried. Why are y'all choosing these same ass dudes that already are doing the same shit? You know,
that's where it gets deep. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I have
and
a theory
so
for that.
I mean, oh, do you? I would love to hear that one.
Okay, so my Instagram is iambabyboyjody. I actually have on one of my shirts right now. And
J-O-D-I?
I'm sorry?
J-O-D-I?
J-O-D-Y.
Why? Okay,
J-O-D-Y, yeah. So for the last 4 years, I've been conducting a case study online. I created a fake Facebook page called Joseph Summers, which is the character Jody in Baby Boy. And I got the idea from one day I was watching Baby Boy. And, I've seen the movie a million times, but that particular time, I saw the movie different. The other times, the focus was on Jody, right? But this time, through my life experiences, I saw so much of my life in the movie. Jody's mom was my mom. My first son's mother and my wife was Yvette. I just noticed different dynamics. And then there's one part in the movie particularly that stood out, and I'll use this as the basis to make my point. And it speaks to what you just said. So Jody was talking to his friend, and he said, yeah, my mom got a new boyfriend. And his boy P said, how you feel about it? And he said, well, I already know what's gonna happen. First, he gonna want to move in, then she gonna want to put me out, then he gonna start beating on her, then she gonna be calling me to help her out, right? Now in the movie, he was young, he was only like 20 in the movie, right? So for him to say, I already know this is what's gonna happen, and then his boy is like, yeah, ain't that how I go? That means that this is a cycle that he's been seeing his entire life, right? So there's another part in the movie where Jody's talking to his mom, and he says, you like them thug dudes. Well, you like them thug niggas is what he said. He's like, why don't you get you one of them L7 brothers, one of them, brothers that be carrying the briefcases and shit. Now, at the time, I thought L7 was like a gang or something. I don't know. Maybe I was just like lame or whatever. I didn't know. So I was talking to Clint. Yeah. So I'm talking to my homie or whatever, Clint, matter of fact. And he goes, nah, that's slang term for like a lame motherfucker, a square motherfucker. L7 is a square. And I'm like, oh shit. So basically, Jody said to his mom, why don't you get you one of them dudes who basically got a job, education, benefits, shit like that. And her reply was, I need a man that can handle me. He said, you got to be a thug to handle you, right? So the point that you just made, and piggybacking off what I said a little bit earlier when I was saying they have those two versions, right? Those same 25% of the guys appeal to who they really are. They're comfortable with them, especially sexually, right? Like they're really comfortable with those guys that appeal to who they are. The other guys are so that they can look like they went into their homegirl. So yeah, he got a good job and he taking care of me and he can provide the house and he can provide whatever. They need that to not look like a failure as a woman based on society standards of what they're supposed to have. And even in Insecure, the show, she was illustrating in the first episode how Black women subconsciously compare themselves to white women. So if you grow up watching television shows where, the white woman got the family and the kids and the house and her husband wears a suit and whatever, that's what you feel like you have to be in order to be a woman like the white woman, right? The only difference is that you didn't grow up in the environment that gives you the same psychological mindset that a woman on TV has. So now you're trying to get with that kind of guy, but you still have the hood mentality. Not that there's anything coming from the hood. I came from the hood, but we think different. If you grow up with uneducated parents who are struggling, they have a survival mentality. If you grow up with parents who are established, whatever, they look at the world different. They view finances different. They're not trying to survive, right? So what happens is the women with the hood mentality become predators on the men who are the opposite and doing well, because they're seeking the man for survival and he's looking for help. So they pretend, like Chris was saying, they pretend like they're the good girl or whatever. They pretend they pretend to be the type of woman that guy would look for long enough for him to marry her or have her kid I mean, or she had this kid or whatever, which is interesting because like when I was conducting the case study as Jody, I would ask questions and I would respond to questions, but I would look for emotional triggers. And so I noticed that they would get really upset when I worded a question a certain way that made them expose who they really are, right? And I understand that this doesn't go for every woman. Nothing is 100%, but I'm just telling you what I've noticed just using a baseline average, right? I forgot the point that I was making. What's my train of thought?
Them showing who they really were.
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. So I asked the question. The question was, give me 3 characteristics that you deem necessary in order to consider a man a good man. And how would you go about determining whether he had those characteristics or not? And the most common answers I got, and I didn't keep exact count, but it had to be around 700 women. The responses that I got were provider, protector, good father, and a couple of the older ladies said God-fearing. And I thought all of those were good answers.
Exactly.
But I asked,
what do they mean?
I
say exactly, but what does that even mean?
Exactly. Well, here's what's interesting. The second part of the question was, how would you determine whether he had those characteristics or not, right? And they couldn't answer the question. Most of them paused or said, I'll get back to you. They wouldn't answer that. They wouldn't answer. Either they would give me those responses or they would completely avoid that aspect of the question. However, it was a trick question because I didn't really want to know the answers. I wanted to know what angle they were going to answer the question from. So when they said provider, they provide for them. A protector, he could protect them. A good father, meaning able to like help them take care of their kids, whether it's his or not. And like I said, a few of the older ladies said a religious man. Oh, and a few said honest, which was interesting with the honest one because a couple of the women that said honest dated like dope dealers, but they still wanted an honest man. It was like, well, how can he be dishonest in one aspect and then honest with you? If he or rob, steal, and kill or sell drugs to his own people, he'll fuck a bitch. Like, because really what they wanted to know was, is he going to cheat on me? When they said honesty. Right? They didn't want to say that. But then when I made them aware that they answered all of the questions from a selfish aspect, they kind of paused for a minute. They never even thought about it like that. And I had to explain to them that you're looking for a man to do something for you. It's almost like a tool. You didn't say anything that benefited him. You didn't say self-esteem, ambitious, driven, health conscious. You didn't mention anything that benefited him as an individual, because here's the thing. I didn't ask you the 3 characteristics of a good man for you. I said the 3 characteristics of a good man, and you interpreted that as a man for you, which means you view men from a position of ownership. And if you treat us like that, then what do you think is going to be the emotional response, whether consciously or subconsciously? How do you think we're going to treat you if you're viewing us as a tool for your benefit?
You know, I just wholeheartedly, absolutely 100% agree with you. And like I said, I mean, not saying I'm some lady magnet now, but I ended up doing a lot better than I did when I was, younger, after I literally set out to become a guy that I said, as long as she finds me mildly physically attractive, I don't want there to be a woman that I'm interested in that I'm a hard no on, right? And so that was kind of from the narrative of me thinking that men were the problem. So I said, if I fix myself, then I should be good out here in these streets because these women are perfect. And so it was like I started to realize, and this is like something I think young men really, 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 really need to think about. And there's obviously there's many different ways that people can take something positive and make it negative, like vitamin B is good for you, but in too high amounts, it's no longer healthy. So I feel like coming up, especially, young men, especially if you're in just about any environment, right? Getting women or getting sex is viewed as a badge of honor. And the more women or sex you can get, then the higher you generally are in a social hierarchy, if that social hierarchy is basic. because you get to a point where that's not really the move. And so I went from having sex with, I won't say, okay, keep it real, with damn near any woman who would have sex with me, to then being like, wait a minute, just because you want to have sex with me doesn't mean I got to have sex with you. I can make some choices here, And then that started making me look at it, instead of me trying to prove to these women why I was worth them talking to, which anyone's gonna have to do a little bit of that, but it was almost a completely one-way street. Right. I'm decent looking and I have a vagina, so therefore, buy me drinks to prove to me why I should talk to you.
The arrogance of having a vagina.
Well, I mean, hey, I'm not mad at that, but real talk, I am not interested in you, like legit. And so that's a hard thing for a lot of women to understand. It's a hard thing for some men to stand on, because other men will be like, oh, what are you, gay? Oh, man, she bad, or whatever it is. And it's like, oh, she got a fat ass. And I'm like, man, she crazy. She ain't doing but ruin lives and all this type of shit, whatever it was. And standing on that and going against the pack, because a lot of that pack mentality is, I mean, it's a cycle of things that have led to all of the negative things that your uncles and cousins and the dude down the street have been complaining about, And so, like, for me, and I'm still unpacking, I guess you could say, some of the damage that I did to my wife, because I did not believe that she was actually the kind of girl that she really was. And, I felt like I was on the Scooby-Doo mystery, like, oh, Mr. fucking Robinson, like, girls tried to get me, man. They tried to get me, like you were saying. They show you who they think you need to see or you want to see. And I have a ton of female friends. It has been, I asked this question to them, almost all of them. Okay, so what kind of man do you want? All right, then it's all the same stuff or whatever. Some of them maybe have a few more details. And then I say, okay, cool. Well, what kind of woman do you think that man wants? Mm-hmm. And after they get through the cliches, well, nice, caring, like I remember this one girl was like, I cook and clean for you every day. I don't need somebody to cook and clean for me. I can cook and clean for my damn self. I grew up in a single parent home. I can cook better than you, so that's not even really something that's not a quality that most men are looking for. Even these women like, oh, you want somebody to just be barefoot and pregnant. I ain't gonna say I've never heard. I would say I've heard maybe 2 or 3 idiots out of the hundreds of men I talk to that have ever said they're looking for that, And so I don't think that men are, first of all, if you don't feel the confidence in yourself, which I get, especially since most of us are coming from the bottom. And when you're coming from the bottom, especially in Detroit, you got holes in your shoes, you ain't got Gucci, you ain't got Prada, whatever the case is, you ain't got a car with rims that spin, then you ain't shit. And so a lot of men then start wearing it on their sleeve. And so they try to at least prove, well, I can fuck you though, or, okay, now let me get this money and get these things. So now let me go and get all the women I couldn't get. Well, now that's why you got a baby by Keisha. You know what I mean? And it's like, it seems that we just accept that as a norm. Like, that's just how it is. And instead of like, oh man, you 38, you ain't got no kids, what's wrong with you? Well, I mean, there's a lot of stuff wrong with me, a lot of stuff wrong with everybody, but one thing that's not wrong with me is it ain't because I am impotent or some shit, I don't think, but I wasn't getting caught up by those dumb ass bitches. And on the flip side, the women that we knew were marriageable, like my wife, she wasn't getting caught up by no dumbass niggas either, and it's like, I don't think that there is enough of us, that actually at least think that way. That doesn't mean that everything we think or try is gonna be the way that it turns out, because reality is reality, but it's the way that we're thinking about it. And I think that, I'm talking real freely here, because I feel like if I was a young man listening to this, man, I don't want to hear a nigga sitting here trying to protect his future pussy, like, and that's what I used to do. And so I be on Facebook talking mad shit, like, you know what, at least right now, nobody can fire me, but stop me when I'm motherfucking lying, because I live this shit day in and day out. And, dude, I have done fucking numbers, and I actually thought about and analyzed all of this shit. And I swear, none of these, I would only marry one woman. I had decided I wasn't getting married. Not because I hate women or nothing like that. It was this is going to derail whatever I had planned for me because they got a whole different plan that ain't got shit to do with what I got to do. Like, I mean, even we're in law school. My plan was I'm trying to get the biggest firm, best firm is gonna pay me the most motherfucking money so I can do what I need to do, pay these loans back, and hopefully have a fucking decent life where I can have a woman and kids. You know what I mean? One day. And well, oh, you work too late. You work too much. You don't have time for me. I mean, well, then you don't want a man that works that kind of career. Now, there's people who make a bunch of money and they don't really have to go to work as much. You know,
Right.
hey, more fucking power to those dudes, but I'm doing 100 hours a week. So I ain't about to be sitting here balling, cashing out for some chick. I met this girl from high school talking about she wanted to basically be a fucking real housewife. She wants to go on all these vacations. Well, who the fuck is paying for this shit? You a goddamn teacher. Nothing wrong with being a teacher, but I mean, what the fuck are you doing on $42,000 to $68,000 is going to afford you to be able to be traveling to $10,000 vacation? What world are you living in? And generally speaking, a man that makes that kind of money, he don't have the time to do that shit. And if he does, it ain't that often.
Exactly. It's almost like they have this well, a lot of them. I'm gonna do my best to not generalize too much. I get heat for that because I be on the internet talking mad shit too.
Call it like
they always say with it, not
is,
all.
Bro.
The majority,
like not all these.
The majority of them have this delusional, as Kevin Samuels would say, this delusional idea of what marriage and relationships and their life is supposed to be. And I really think it comes from just like what the fuck we watched when we were growing up. Like I'm 42.
Disney princesses.
So when I was growing up, like all of the shows that we grew up on was all of these wholesome family shows where the father was a lawyer or something like that. And they all had the big house and everything always was okay by bedtime. Every episode, it was always okay by bedtime. We were never, even if we grew up in an environment where it was the opposite of that, it always made it seem like our situation was isolated. Now that I'm an adult, I understand it. Like every race has those same issues that I have. You know what I'm saying? Like even I have a counselor. I see a therapist once a week. And she has some of the same problems in her family, and she's Jewish. Some of the same problems in her family that I have. But we grew up thinking that like that was the norm, and then our shit was toxic. Right? And then that just speaks to like the facade that the media puts on. Like we're not just getting a facade from women, but we're getting a facade through media for what life is supposed to be like. Even with social media, nobody shows their house when it's fucked up. Even I got some shit over pushed to the side that you can't even see. Like nobody does that, right? So when you're surrounded by facades, you gotta. Well, I know for me, it created a little bit of an anxiety complex because now I'm always trying to look past the facade.
Absolutely. You know, you touched on a very big point, brother, and I like to hear from Delonte. But like, so for example, thing you said about that, I thought about changing my background. Man, I'm in the middle of trying to build this closet for wife and organize this stuff. I said, you know what, man, this is what it is. And I got my desk right here because I was so afraid. Like I said, if you had asked me last year what my mental health thing was, it was -20, man. I didn't even know I was depressed, and I hadn't even gotten out of bed really in months. You know what I mean? That ain't me. I hadn't even left the house. My frat brothers and stuff would tease me, call me bubble boy and shit, but it still wasn't really like dawning on me that, dude, you are burnt out and you fucked up right now. You know what I mean? So like I told you, I spent so much time. Like I remember my wife used to cheer for the Rams, and Chris and I went to I don't know if it was the calendar unveiling or whatever. And you know, I was conscious of where the camera was. So every time it came on here, I'm smiling, making sure I'm looking like a nice, non-fucking threatening black dude in case maybe someone sees this somewhere. And I'm like, you know what? First of all, and which I think is another thing, I feel like people have gone too far into the be yourself. Yeah, you can be yourself. You can be whoever you want. But first of all, if you're going to be outspoken, then you better be good, because as soon as you pop up, somebody's going to try to whack you down, you know.
Exactly.
But no one can be a better you than you. Nobody can be a better me than me. My truth is my truth. I'm open for it to be changed, but I'm really stepping into a place where I'm saying, man, I spent so much time playing characters and roles. I played the player role. I played the flashy dude role. I didn't go even piss without my gun, wearing big ass fucking jewelry and all this stupid ass shit. And I consider myself an intelligent person. I was at the University of Michigan, and I was watching T.I.'s Bring 'Em Out video. He had on the high top Pradas, the America's Cup. I bought 6 pairs of them bitches. And then I was watching another one, and I was like, my chain ain't big enough. And it was at that point that I was like, wait a minute. This is influencing me. And I'm not an idiot, you know what I mean? And it's just, well, shit, apparently I am, because I still got these motherfucking shoes, you know what I'm saying? Literally on my rack right now. And it's just, I'm talking like this, and sometimes I talk like this, and people say, oh, well, I thought you were supposed to be a lawyer. Well, bitch, I am, but it's also bitches and hoes out here. And the motherfucking truth is, nobody is keeping it real, because wasn't nobody keeping it real with me. I wish somebody would have goddamn told me what the fuck was really going on out here in these streets.
Me too, bro. Me too.
I'm glad that I was so scary. I was so scary. That was what kept me out of shit, was being scary. Straight up, was being scary. Like I didn't ejaculate inside of a woman until I was 25. Until I was 25. I didn't smoke weed until I was 24, because I felt like you're gonna end up being one of them dudes at the corner store with the lean Timbs and the black lips, you know. Now, I'm not saying that you should ejaculate in a woman. I'm not saying that you should do any of those things. I'm just saying I was scary and I was quiet. So I didn't have to do no crazy shit to prove that maybe I ain't as scary as the motherfucker might have thought, you know? And that leads to a lot of stuff.
And it was environment as well. Like the people you hung around, like the people, like our group of friends is most definitely a different type of people. You know what I'm saying? Like we grew up, like my mom always say, you know, she said, you know, you grew up in the hood, but you're not of the hood. You know, you grew up in the hood, but you're not of the hood. So it kind of always gave me that understanding that, yeah, you grew up on 7 Mile between Mount Orion, down the street from Persian, but you're not that's not who we're raising you to be as a person. Right. You know, so I mean, most definitely, like, you know, because I think about that a lot. Like I grew up definitely a different, you know, point of contention than everybody else that I grew up around. You know, my father was in the household, you know. My father, you know, he was a great dad. You know, he's like my best friend, and he was everything for me. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, you know, and like Ramone said earlier, like he was everybody else's dad. He was everybody's dad. You know, and that's what I'm trying to be for my son. You know, but the crazy part about it is like, you know, like I just feel like a lot of it comes from, you know, because I mean, honestly, like me growing up, I wasn't able to get the hood girl because they saw me as an anomaly. They saw me as a dude that you know, that grew up in a good household, you know, dude that went to private school and stuff like that, you know, because I did go to private schools. You know, I was you know, I just didn't fit the bill, you know, and I ended up going to school, ended up getting graduating, you know, my you know, my bachelor's and then getting my master's and everything, you know. So I mean, but the crazy part about it is like even in college when you look at it, like we were talking about that earlier, you know, talking about the you know, the quote unquote thug guy, quote unquote, you know, and the fact that, you know, chicks even oh, you not gonna talk about that time. You not gonna talk about that time.
I was like, where did this guy come from? Who is this?
You're not gonna talk about you gonna talk about that time where I had all the J's and I had all the, I wore do rags all the time. Yeah.
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 That was during the time me trying to find myself. But you know, but it was funny because even in college, like even in college, like there were thugs in college, and you'd be like, how are there thugs in college? Like how are there dudes that were thugs in college? But
I mean, some of them were. That was a bad idea, though.
exactly, like you're going for higher education, but you're a thug. Like that don't make sense. But I mean, I did that. That's something I never subscribed to. So, but yeah.
All right, so I
Now
got
comic
3
books
questions.
are cool. Yeah, right.
So I got 3 questions. So pretty much like with me being a younger dude, like, and me, like, I think to myself a lot. Like, I try to stay off of social media so much. Like, well, I try to stay off social media, like, period, just because I don't want my thoughts altered or anything like that. So I try to not keep to myself, but just just far as social media, I try to stay away from that. But far as like talking to people, I try to like talk to people more than anything, and then just gain, what I'm saying, insight from that. So 3 questions is, my first one is, how in a relationship is communication the most important thing, and if not, what is and why? The second thing is, um, finances. How do you view finances between you and your significant others? And I know it can be different between like y'all just dating and then y'all together and then y'all engaged and then y'all married. Because a lot of women that I see feel like, all right, it should be all on the man. Like, hey, you paying for this, and if you do feel that way, tell me
Fuck
why,
that bitch.
and tell me tell me
Straight
why
up.
you feel that way, and tell me what is she doing with her money? Because that's always the question I have, and I've never got that question answered yet. All right, if the dude is paying for all of this and everything, what are you doing with your money?
Making
And
better
if you
decisions
don't
with her
have,
money than you are.
right, so
Right.
when y'all break
She
up,
should
now
be
she up
investing in your
45,000.
dreams, though. Y'all collective
So
dreams.
I wanna know the answer to that one. And then my third one, damn, what was my third one? Communication that all right, would you teach your son and daughter 2 different things? So I feel like for me and my life right now, I feel like my daughter and son, I'm gonna pretty much tell them, hey, when it comes to dating and figuring out who you want to marry, like, I don't know how bad this is gonna sound or how good, like, pretty much try. Like, try different things, like as many females that you can talk to and do different things with, talk to them, many dudes, you know what I'm saying? Hey, cause you gotta figure out what you like. Cause I feel like if you're gonna be a virgin and you go get married, that shit ain't gonna work out. I just don't see it. And then if you don't have as much experience, you end up getting something and being like, damn, like, I don't know if this is what I want. So just tell me on those 3 different questions, like, what's your thought and different things like that. Whoever want to start.
I can kick it off.
Okay.
Oh, you want to go? Because I've been talking a lot.
Yeah.
But I do just want to say that the thing about virgins, look up the statistics, it's actually completely the opposite.
Okay.
It's the opposite. Those marriages tend to last longer because they don't know anything else.
Exactly.
Not 2 virgins. I'm saying you just a virgin.
Oh.
Oh, you was. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'm not saying
that
both of y'all virgins. It's hard to find another virgin.
That is right. I mean,
okay.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like the first question about communication being I've actually learned, through dating dating someone else, that how much communication works in a relationship, because now I'm divorced, just to be honest, but I've learned that sweeping things under the rug is necessarily the greatest thing to do in a relationship. Because me and my ex-wife did a lot of sweeping things under the rug. We didn't talk about everything, because we were, it was a thought of maybe offending someone, and then also about I think it has a lot to do because I feel like communication is a huge point, you know, because you have to be able to tell, you have to be honest about who you are, and you have to be honest about what you think about things, and have the space in the agency to be able to do it, you know, because I feel like if you don't have the agency, or if you feel like you're going to offend the other person somehow, and you're not clear in your communication, you know, because I feel like clear is kind. Being clear in your communication is kind, rather than the content of what you're saying. But if you're saying something in a clear manner where someone can understand where you're coming from, I feel like that definitely does help, you know. Because actually one of the main lessons that I have in my book is about your attendant communications to be able to pass the three gates. Is it truthful? Is it honest? And is it kind? You know, and the one thing that you have to be, you know, cognizant of as a man is your attendant communication going through those three gates, you know. And at the same time, when I said clear is kind, being clear about where you're coming from and being honest about where you are is the best policy. So that's the answer to the first question. Anybody want to hop on that?
I'll hop on that.
Go ahead.
Unless you want to go. Go ahead, brother. I got notes.
You want me to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I believe that communication is absolutely probably the most important aspect of a relationship. It just gets difficult. And it's one of the things that I've been case studying over the last 4 years. It gets difficult because the basis of me being Joseph Summers and the premises of my book is the absolute truth, right? The problem is that being kind is subjective, right? If you're forced to face something that you don't want to see, it doesn't matter how kind you say it, it's still offensive. However, there's another aspect. Back to the point that I made in the movie where she says, I need a man who can handle me. If we have a generation or several generations of women who only respect aggressiveness, then it puts men, especially Black men, in a position where when you say things kind, you're not respected or taken seriously because you said it kind. So what happens is that you get put in these situations where in order to be heard, you have to be aggressive. But now that you're aggressive, now the offense comes because you're aggressive, but you weren't respected when you said it kind. So it kind of creates this toxic paradox that you really can't get out of. And it's what I've been case studying in the groups, like when I ask questions or I comment on something. The moment that my point is made, and I've used several examples where it can't be argued, then the conversation starts to shift to personal attacks. Now it's the who hates you, you got mommy issues. I said who hates you, who hurt you, you got mommy issues, your dick must be little, you probably gay. Now they have to assault you and basically emasculate you for being right about them. It's called gaslighting. And they do it so much, it's so textbook that I've been doing it so long that I already know what they're going to do before they do it. So when they start doing it on social media, as soon as they do it, I have a screenshot Google clips of the characteristics of what the condition is covert narcissism. So I have like a screenshot Google clips of like the characteristics of it. So as soon as they do it, I post it. They do something else, then I post it. They do something else because I already know what they're going to do. They're so textbook. And at the end of the day, that issue affects the communication within the Black community because it's very common in our community. And I can go deeper into why I believe that why the problem exists. But the communication, that talking in circle issue is something that I find to be very common in our community. And I think it's the root cause of most of the problems as far as relationships go in our community because of the communication. Like our men can't, it's like we're not allowed to express ourselves freely, or else there's a punishment if it's not what they want to hear, which creates like an environment where now you're breeding players. If I'm not allowed to say how I actually feel, then I can only say what you want to hear. Well, then that's what I'm going to do. You're training me to tell you what you want to hear and to keep my feelings to myself. So you can't do that and then in turn want an honest man. Honesty means that sometimes you're going to hear things that you don't like. And that's the only way that we can progress as a people, is if we can have those conversations. So yeah, absolutely, communication is 100% the number one.
So let me actually jump in on that. And I love a lot of the things that you said. And I actually had never heard the term covert narcissist. That's why I had to stop and Google. I'm like, oh man, that sounds like bars. So, for me, first of all, being an attorney, communication is part of, my job, and having, done marketing and business to some extent, right? I feel like this is to me how I look at a lot of these buzzwords. Communication, but what does communication mean? And so the way that the analogy I often use is, all right, so you have the intended, the person who is intended to send some message. Then you have whoever the intended audience or recipient is. Then you have people who are just recipient or receiving that information, and it wasn't even intended for them, right? So, not with the textbook, but the most effective, I won't even say the best, the most effective communication is a communication that is coming from a source in a way that is likely to reach the receiver of the information in the way that it was intended by the person who was delivering the message. And so the difficulty with that is that I'm finding, as I'm trying to understand humans at this point, is that we all within trial work and all these things, all of this comes up, even though we rely on 12 jurors or 12 your peers. Eyewitness testimony is the most unreliable. It is a stone cold fact. We still do it because people are more likely to believe what you said you saw than, for example, with COVID. Wherever you fall on the thing, I'm not a scientist, my wife is, but I didn't sit back and read all the stuff. But even if you did, you got people debating all kinds of things they have no training in. So I say all that to say, what I'm starting to understand is, I may say something clear, and this is something I want to piggyback on that Nathan said, is, well, you're not allowed to express yourselves without punishment. Well, I was watching this random interview with some African rapper in London. And he said, man, don't ask him, just do it. And I was like, damn, you know what? Real talk, sitting around and looking for approval, and being concerned about the approval is not necessarily a negative thing, because obviously you can go way far on the other end, right? That's like an asshole and nobody wants to be around, can't listen to anything. But just like you said, hey, if I said that the light was green from my perspective and you say that it's red, well, there's positions and there's interests. If that's where you are, and I believe that what I said is right, then I can live with that, and it is what it is. Let the chips fall where they may. Now, I do think at some point you don't want to be a damn Ned Stark, because I was Ned Stark too. Ned Stark is a sucker. You ain't got, you got to realize who you're dealing with, because maybe people usually have honest and being themselves and being transparent, because other people use it against them and try to attack them with it. Well, yeah, if you're ashamed of it, it's like Eminem did in 8 Mile. You know what? Yeah, so I do live with my mom, and all that. Hey, so people can't use your truth against you if you use it. But I think that people talk about communication, and then I'll wrap this up, but they don't really think about what that is. So, like, for example, one thing you'll often hear from women all the time, because you mentioned the term absolute truth. I'm not sure that there's absolute truth outside of 2 + 2 = 4, because let's say, for example, I'm standing on one side of the street, you're standing on the other side of the street. If we were to take a picture of the exact same scenery, those pictures look slightly different, or maybe this, sometimes the shade looks, this way or that way. And so people don't seem to be as understanding of the fact that every single one of us has our own triggers, our own perceptions, and it colors every single thing that we hear and say. And I feel like a lot of the women that I see, especially the more outspoken Black women, as they get later and maybe have had failings in dating, you always hear them say, "So what you're saying is," and I'm like, "Well, no, I said what I said, and I choose my words quite carefully to avoid this. You can actually just scroll up using the same device that you use to say the stupid shit that I did not say to read what I said, you know?"
Right.
And so I found myself going back and forth trying to prove myself right. And I'm thinking, well, maybe if I just explain it this way, then there's no possible way that this can be misinterpreted. False. Now you're just putting out more words for them to misinterpret if that's what they're intending on doing. You know, so I think the other thing, and then I'll leave this, is that people talk about, well, I'm a great communicator. Well, are you speaking the same language? I could be fluent in Japanese, but if I'm speaking to you and you only speak English, then what does that mean to me? And so I think we don't spend enough time, I won't say trusting science, but using a lot of the tools from the people who have been studying communication and the most effective things and understanding ourselves. Because Aristotle said, and I wrote this down, knowing yourself is the beginning to all wisdom. And so if I know my triggers, then at least if nothing else, I can try and understand and listen to you and be conscious of the fact that I may be triggered by certain things. So that helps me understand your message better, you know, because that's the only thing that we can help with. And in a relationship, so many things happen that stuff gets lost in the sauce, you know.
Definitely. You mentioned trying to explain things different ways, and I just wanted to touch on that real quick. I won't be long, but that used to drive me crazy, especially on social media. And because for the longest time, I actually thought they didn't get it. So here I am typing all these paragraphs and other stuff, trying to reword it a different way to until the point where I started wording stuff to cut out the middleman. Like I would write out stuff, and then I would respond to myself to block it. So it's like, okay, so you're gonna say this and blah 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 blah. Then they started saying stuff like, "I'm about to read all that," but then they would type. They would type long paragraphs responding. They would type long paragraphs responding to me, but not responding to what I said. So what I figured out was deflecting. They understood the first time. Anytime that you say anything that's a trigger for them, or anything that you say that might be true about them, then what they do is they pretend like they don't understand. They get it. That's called gaslighting. And it drives you crazy, especially in a relationship, because you're thinking that you're not getting through, and you are. They're literally playing dumb. Right?
You know what? Sometimes, I'm sorry. Go ahead, brother.
No,
my bad.
No. Go ahead. Say what you're going to say.
I was going to say sometimes, most of the time, people really don't hear what you're saying. Sometimes. Now they may not be putting in effort. You know, they may have already developed their opinion and they weren't listening anyway. You know, because I mean, like it sounds like you're describing my whole COVID time on social media that led me to come to the conclusion that, you know what, I said what I said. You know, like you said, now I'm responding back to myself. Oh, here comes Ramone writing the thesis. Well, because you motherfuckers always want to try and take the shit somewhere else. So, like you said, I'm point 1, point 2, point 3. Now I'm sitting here. I've been responding to somebody about something that absolutely does not matter in my day-to-day life for 3 hours. To do what? For you to still be like, well, that's all right. You hate women,
right?
You know. So yeah.
When they start doing that, your point is made. Like that's a cue. That's a cue that your point is made. When they switch from the topic and they start talking about you, that means they understand. They ain't got shit else to say. Now they have to discredit you. So when people go back and read this shit, they don't look like an idiot, or they don't look.
Let me ask you this.
Or they delete it and look like an idiot.
So let me ask you this, because that was I forget what the math is, right? But in terms of, like, especially with social media and engagement, you have X amount of people who will view a certain medium, then certain people who will actually interact, and so on and so forth, right? So
Right.
I used to be arguing with women about relationships and all these issues online. And long story short, I started realizing that, and this is the same thing in law too. If the witness is going on, you just let them go. If you start going back and forth with them, then the jury will start disliking you because you're attacking them or whatever the case is. And now they've gotten you all off track. But at the same time, and this is going back to not being allowed to express yourselves and just standing on whatever your truth is as a man and being willing to be wrong, is like, well, we don't know what other people think. It seems like they would maybe come to the conclusion that the other person is wrong.
Right.
Well, if they're anything like the person that you're talking to, they probably think that you're wrong. You know what I mean? And if that's the conclusion that you came to after I tried my best to explain it in the best way that I was going to do in the time and the medium I used, then it is what it is.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's man shit.
Absolutely.
Well, all right, guys, we're gonna have to wrap this up. This is a great conversation, man. I'm definitely appreciative of everybody who came on tonight. I just want to go around and have some final thoughts. Just kind of keeping them 1 or 2 minutes if you possibly can. And let's start out with the youngster in charge, man. Delonte, what are your final thoughts, man?
About what I would tell myself?
Yep.
Final thoughts about what I would tell myself. Just a second. Somebody else gonna have to go. Just give me a second. I'm sorry.
All right. Mr. Nate.
Yeah. I would tell myself to always make yourself the number one priority. And because, like I stated earlier, if you're the foundation and you aren't solid, then you can't support anything else. So that's something that I learned later in life. And I would just, I would tell every young man to, I would tell myself at a younger age to adapt that mentality a lot earlier.
All right.
You know what? I am actually trying to teach myself that now because I feel like I thought I guess I was an asshole because I was just focused on what I was trying to accomplish, trying to get out the hood and do best I can. And so I didn't really spend time building family relationships and things like that. Then I went all the way to the other side, trying to show and prove to people that I actually cared and I wasn't just some opportunist, you know what I mean? And then people started basically using and abusing me. So I would say exactly what you said. Mel Robbins has a quote, and she has a TED Talk that says, the main takeaway is put yourself first, but take care of others. So she uses an example of her dad and her having some big history with pool tables, and he refinishes them. Long story short, she needs an office, and she has this pool table, and so she's working in the dang on broom closet while dad has this pool table here. So she ends up saying, you know what, I have to do what I need to do for me. So she does take care of him and their memories by paying to have it professionally removed and stored. But then she took her dang on space back and made the office that she needed. So I think that people, you know what, as a man, you need to put your motherfucking self first. You need to put yourself first, period, point blank. And that just is what it is. And I would tell my daughter the same thing. And hopefully you're not an asshole or a jerk, and you need to know that you're not. And if you are, then own that too, you know? And because the truth of the matter is that eventually it will balance out and you'll figure out who it is that you are. And you can make a decision on whether you want to be that person or not.
That was great, man. I honestly, my final thoughts are, I just want to just kind of just talk about one of my man lessons in my book about if you're not leading, you're following. And we as men, we don't necessarily learn leadership skills from a very young age. We don't really learn about how to gain consensus, or even in team sports. It seems like a lot of times it seems like the leaders just become better as they get older. Like Delonte, I saw you become a leader for the football team as you got older, and you got a lot more responsibility when you became a senior, but it just seems like we don't develop our kids as being leaders, and especially as being men. I wish I would have learned a little bit more about being a leader in being a leader of men and of a family, and as well as I learned being a leader of my relationship, because I thought that happy wife, happy life. I wish I would have gotten a little bit more understanding of how to lead a relationship. For my father, my father passed away when I was 25, and that was before I had any responsibilities like being a father or being a husband or anything. So I didn't really get a chance to learn anything from him. And I never really had those conversations with my mother. So I didn't really learn a lot. Even and some of it is things that are now thrust upon me to now make sure that I am leading, even though now I have an unconventional situation, with my kid's mother, and being divorced now. I still have to lead, because if I don't, you know, I'm gonna look up, and my kids are in a different place than what I want them to be at, and it's all about where I see my children, growing and becoming, and honestly, like it's a battle every day to learn how to lead. So I just feel like, I'm gonna teach my son, and I would have given myself a little bit more, understanding of leadership, of being a leader, and being a leader in a relationship, and then a leader of a family. So yeah, so that's what I would have done. That's my final thoughts. So
All
Alante,
right,
any final thoughts?
Go ahead, brother.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Go ahead. I've said enough, man.
No,
Final
he's
thoughts,
good.
man. Final thoughts.
My final thoughts would be to my younger self is know who you are. Far as like know what you want, know what you need, uh know what you are, and know who you want to be. Like far as getting in a relationship, because it's like if you know yourself and what you bring into that relationship, no matter what happens in that relationship, you can always walk away with you, because you came as you. You didn't come as nothing else. You didn't come as like some fake or some illusion or anything like that. You came as you, so you can always walk away with that. So that's something I would definitely tell myself: figure out who you are right now, who you want to be, what you want, and what you need.
That's what's up. Well, I just wanted to tell everybody I appreciate you guys coming through tonight, man. I know it's been a struggle, man. We're trying to get this together, man. But yeah, I just wanted to let everybody know that Man Camp is officially a 501c3 organization. So so I appreciate the claps, I'm definitely working towards, definitely putting that as a force that I can be a mentorship program, in the schools, and as well as, on, doing it, whenever we possibly can, wherever we possibly can, to really help and mentor these young men, and give them a direction. So I just appreciate everybody, man. This is definitely something that we need to do on a regular basis. I'm definitely gonna have you guys back on, and I'd say appreciate you guys. Definitely appreciate you guys so much, man. I thank you for coming on. Most definitely.
Oh, thanks for having me, bro. Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
brother.
Most definitely.
Hey, Chris, can I say one thing real quick?
Go ahead.
I mean, this was such a broad topic, and I think that we kind of got a lot of different pieces out. One thing that I think would make a great topic that I would really like to just witness is Delante's question about finances. But then it was one thing I noticed in the beginning. You said unfortunately you're diverse, and it's an untraditional situation, and responsibility for being the leader. Well, you don't need to take too much responsibility, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, just be everybody makes mistakes and we all have our own journey. And so you pick your head up and you move on and you make the best decision that you can moving on. Because even if you were General S. Sherman, Harriet Tubman had to shoot slaves. You know what I mean? Like those are the things that happen when you're the leader. If you're going to be the leader, and that doesn't mean you're going to be the leader in every situation. And even though you may be accountable or hold yourself accountable for a certain result, that does not mean that you were the sole reason or the blame for that. You know what I mean? And so I just wanted to give you some compassion, you know, for the particular situation that you find yourself in. It's things happen. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Maybe there's mistakes that you made, mistakes that she made, bro. This is life. And this is the type of situation that we're having these conversations. I'm being extremely transparent because this is the type of conversations that us men need to have with each other. And I need y'all much more than y'all need me. I guarantee you that.
Most definitely, man. Thank you. I
It's real talk,
appreciate it,
Ramone.
brother. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me on too, man. I really appreciate it.
No
Hey,
problem.
Thank y'all. I'm definitely gonna check you out, Nate.
Oh, for sure. I'm looking forward to you. DM me on IG.
Okay, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. All right. So this is the
thank you,
Man
Chris.
Camp Podcast, episode 9. We're gonna have a great episode next week. That's gonna go up next week. So hopefully, you know, we're gonna have an all-female panel next time, and we're gonna see
Cool.
how these opinions are a little different. You know, asking ladies about in their opinions. So that should be good. So look forward to that, man. It's gonna be episode 10. So I just appreciate all the guys that came out tonight, man. We're gonna keep going, man. All right. So stick and stay. I'll look back. 1.